Very good. Yeah. So, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for coming to this evening's CISO presentation. I'm Ron Wesley here, associate in Becker. I'm based here. I'll just give a few housekeeping notes and then hand over to Dion. So, toilets, they are just fixed. You just have to go to the lift shaft, and it's close exit. Go down for men and up for ladies. Okay. Then in emergency fire, please do not use lifts, but take the stairs down. And assembly point is in front of the HC building to the right. And in the event of an earthquake, please stay clear of any falling objects. And if you've got like lampshades, for example, yeah, like lampshades, there are projectors, yeah. So hopefully not too much that could fall down. And then wait for a sign that we can all evacuate the building safely. And in that event, I'll provide further information. That's probably all you need to know for now. Okay. So I'll hand over to John. You're the RMC for this evening. And yeah, over to you.
Thanks, Ron. I just want to add to this housekeeping notes, important, very important rule. In case we run out of wine or beer, you always go to Okay, so the theme for this meeting is recovery strengthening infrastructure projects. And we have two other sessions after that. So, Cyclone Gabrielle, most significant damage to the eroding marine networks in the whole bay. And this presentation will focus on the impact of the extreme weather events on the rail network and recovery currently down the way, with specific reference to bridge damage in the Napier and Wairoa section. The Palmerston North Gisborne Line. So our presenter, then Headifen, who is leading the Hawke's Bay Cyclone recovery for KiwiRail, who we opened the PNGL, and is also KiwiRail owner interface manager for the transport Eastcoast Alliance. And the other person who was supposed to be presented is Rudolph Kotze, who you all know, unfortunately is himself on to COVID. And I believe Phil, you are addressing, and Phil, and before that. So then please. Yeah, now is that mutual?
Not yet.
Oh, by the way, this is all recorded. Registered,
yeah.
Notified.
So this so let's go on.
Tēnā koutou e homa no Haratonga aho, actually no Karanima aho, hi kai mahi aho ki ngā rewewe o Aotearoa, e noho ana aho ki Wakanai, ko Daniel Headifen toka ingoa, no reira tēnā koutou katoa. Thank you for the introduction. So I'm as said, part of KiwiRail's team that's working now with the Transport Recovery East Coast Trek Alliance on the reinstatement of the Palmerston North Gisborne Line. So I'm going to talk a bit about what the damage has been from Cyclone Gabrielle to the line. Going to then show a bit of the work that's been happening. with a couple of specific areas that we're focusing on. Then I'll pass over to Phil to go through some specific bridge pieces. I've got to just stand, so I'm not sure that's going to work. As I said in my intro there, I'm from Hawke's Bay, but I live in Waikanae now. So after Cyclone Gabrielle happened, I had some family that were affected. I went up to a little town called Rangahau to help out with my mother-in-law there, and then up to Karanima to Havelock North where my parents live. And I got the call from KiwiRail to see what I volunteered, and they accepted me volunteering to come and help out. So first, it's called the Palmerston North Gisborne Line, but we don't actually run that full distance anymore. So we split up our work into 4 sections. I'm just moving this because I've been asked to keep the camera on myself. Yeah, here we go. So the Wairoa to Gisborne section, that was mothballed in 2012. I was actually area manager for that when that happened. So not going to refer to it again other than this brief piece on it. So we're doing what's called duty of care in that section, which is our land detrimentally affecting our neighbours, or is our neighbours' land detrimentally affecting us? And that's the extent of it. My team doesn't have a mandate to look at any further than that. Now, if I jump back to the southern end, we talk from about Hastings South, and this will become clear as I go into what the damage is. And it's Hastings South, is Hastings to Woodville. It's actually probably Hastings to Palmerston North. Then Hastings to Napier, and you can see that's a much shorter section, and it'll become clear why we have that just as a section. And then Napier to Wairoa. So, like I say here, Woodville, but it's actually Palmy to Hastings. So after the cyclone, there was a large number, a bit over 100 of pieces of damage to this section of track, but there was only one major damage site. So we've classed the damage, just like we did in Kaikoura, as minor, moderate, major, extreme. And so the biggest was a major damage site. That's Bridge 176. That's just between the township of Waipawa and the Waipawa River. It's actually Bridge 175, goes over the river, but a rail over road bridge, the embankment between that and the river bridge got completely washed out. That got fixed, and you can see the work happening there. Rural earth moving team doing some work on that, and that we reopened to Hastings early April. But there is still damage in this section that it doesn't affect the safe running of trains, but it's going to affect the long-term resilience of that section of line. So there's still damage that we've got to fix, but the damage we have left to fix is quite a big scale less than what we've got from Hastings North. So it's the first of second of the bridging sites, and it's the biggest of the bridge damage sites. So this will get talked about a bit more soon. This is the reason that we break it into Hastings to Napier, because there were several other much smaller sites around Timona and a bit south of Whakatu, but they got fixed within a couple of weeks, generally ballast washouts and such. But this has taken us some months. So Bridge 217, about I'm not sure how to. Oh, there we go. And you can see that there's pretty substantial damage there. That United Civil and a few others, Navare, Oricon, I'm going to miss some out, TNT, Spiral Drilling, group, plenty of people have been helping us with on this site. I'm not sure how I can get this to start moving again. Okay, then going to Napier Wairoa. So it doesn't start at Napier, it's actually at once you get to Bayview. It's about 10 kilometres north of Napier and in the Estale section. So we've split this damage. It shows only 3 sections, but we've split it into 4. And I'll talk about those. Estale, which is from Bayview up to Munns Creek. So I'll go into a bit more detail in a bit. East River, and then Tutera to Kahika, and then Kahika to Wairoa. And just another bridging piece here. This is the rail bridge at Eastdale. Sorry, at East River. It's a bridge that pretty sure was built in 1938 after the big storm through Eastdale at that time, washed out the old rail bridge. And with one of our contractors was out there, and he said, you know, that's a big bridge? Is that your biggest bridge on the line? And I remember saying it's not even in the top 12. So we have massive bridges on the PNGL. Can't tell you how many viaducts off the top of my head, but you've got Kapua, Ormanville, down south of Hastings, and a couple other big ones. And then north of here, you've got Waikari, the Mohaka Viaduct, which is still the tallest viaduct in the southern, was the tallest viaduct in the southern hemisphere. It's still the tallest in Australasia. It's about 98 meters from it to water, and about 300 meters long. So massive structures. This is not a small bridge, but it is when it comes to the Palmerston North Gisborne Line. Right, so Eastdale, it's been quite a public one because State Highway 5 goes through Eastdale. So if you're going to Wairoa on State Highway 2, you'll take a left-hand turn and go up State Highway 5 to Taupo. And Eastdale, that's 7 kilometres of the PNGL, follows the State Highway 5 route until you get to Munns Creek, and then we branch off and go up the East River. It's a different sort of damage here than what we've encountered in other places. The East River has completely destroyed the track through here. I'll let you read all of that, and we'll talk about the Eastdale in a bit more. There's only the one bridge 219, that had a bit of scour damage at the northern end of this, but the track was completely destroyed. Next section north, so we leave State Highway 5 and there's the old Napier Taupo Road, which is now Alice Wallace Road. And I'm not sure when it swapped and that didn't get used. That follows, that's actually at the top of the picture, that's Alice Wallace Road, and the PNGL is underneath. So more of what we call a sidling cut, that we're along the slopes in the East River Valley, and you can see there's been overslips and washouts there. And it generally gets worse as our access gets poorer. So Alice Wallace Road stops at about the 208k, and then local farmer Vanessa, we can use her farm for a bit of access, and then you've got nothing. You've got native bush and some forestry without any roads and such in it, and a bunch of tunnels to make it harder for us with access. And there's one reasonable sized bridge 223A. And I've never actually been 100% sure why it's got the A on it. Oh, noting here, we massive effort to do lots of inspecting that quite a few consultancies helped us with. And so lots of use of helicopters, drones, and such, high rails, but mostly it was on foot because we dropped teams off from the helicopters and they had to walk it all. Right, now you get to Tūtera and we get close to State Highway 2. So it's quite different than the Kaikoura earthquake, which often people ask me for the similarities, that we are nowhere near as close to the state highway. So from Tūtera all the way up to Wairoa, we're often within sight of each other and sometimes in the same adjacent corridor, but often we're several hundred meters apart. State Highway 2 had the big damage at Portorino, the Waikari Gorge, that their road bridge got washed out, and our viaduct was still able to be used. So we used the viaduct for a lot of high railing and getting people the site to check out the damage, but you couldn't high rail stuff like this. So this is what is the major form of the main extreme form of damage for the PNGL. It's big embankment washouts. This is the biggest of them. So it's at the 227.5k, I think.
Apologies, for some reason the wrong screen is shared via Zoom, so I don't know why. Okay, let's have a quick look. Apologies. For some reason.
for this. You want me to full screen? Working? Yeah, okay. Is it full screen? Yeah, full screen.
Sweet. So big washout here. That was a 1.5 by 2 meter old arch culvert. So it's not like it was a bridge that washed out. It's about 50 meters, 55 meters long, that bit of hanging track, and about 15 meters deep. And it wasn't even a named stream that did that. Then Kahika, all the way to Wairoa. Not meaning to downplay the damage, because there is a lot, but it's far more in the equivalence of a major storm event for us. Only one major damage site, quite a few moderate and tons of minor ones, but it's not the sort of stuff that we would enter into with an alliance to have to deal with. Right, so that's damage. Now, what have we been doing? This is Bridge 176, once that's been repaired. It used to be part of the Waipawa River Bridge. So the piers needed specific work on them to hold them back, because they're not built for the earth pressure forces. They used to be freestanding. That's finished, and the scale of work that we've got. This is one of those viaducts. Bit of erosion, bit of scour, slipping and such around some of those, and quite a few culverts and minor bits of earthworks that will need attending to. Right, but then the bigger piece, and we're going to spend a bit of time on this one, between Napier and Hastings. So starting off with the rivers, because the rivers, and being from Hawke's Bay, I thought I knew the rivers, and learnt an awful lot about them, and also how they've massively, the forming of Hawke's Bay. So the railway came through here about 1870. The railway is a section in red, and where it's blue water, that's before the cyclone. Where it's muddy brown, that's after. So you got the Tutaikuri at the top of the screen, well, the upper part of the screen, and the Naruroa, and that's how they look before and after. And in here, Bridge 217 got taken out. But just stepping out a bit to look at, it's not Hawke's Bay as a whole, but it's the area between Heritonga, Hastings, and Napier Ahuriri. So you got the Tutaikuri is the upper river, and the Naruroa, and you can again see a nice green area, and then very brown is the Naruroa. It didn't blow its banks, it overtopped, and it overtopped into Pakawhai, which is in between, and it overtopped into Twyford, yep, Twyford, and some other areas that are down the bottom of the screen. At the same time that's happening, the Tutaikuri, it blew its banks in a whole number of places. I can't tell you how many is, but I'm pretty sure it's over a dozen. And massively, it blew its banks at Awatoto, and the water went 3.5 kilometres north, along an area of Ravensdown, our tannery, some animal processing plants and such, and caused a huge toxic hazard. So when we were going in there, we had to be in hazmat chutes, and they'd wash your vehicles down and stuff. It was full on in there, and that water combining took out Bridge 217, and I'll show you that in a bit. But just this is a bit of the history of these rivers, and I've knew some of it, but learned a bunch more. So the Tutaikuri used to flow and outlet up in Ahuriri, so probably about 8 kilometres north of there. And in the 1920s, it was causing lots of flooding problems and such, and so there were schemes to divert it. Then the earthquake, Hawke's Bay earthquake, happens in 31, kills about 80-something people in Hastings, over 100 in Napier, and massive uplift. And you've got meters of uplift, and that makes the let's divert the Tutaikuri even more pressing. But it doesn't happen straight away. People say earthquake happens and Tutaikuri is diverted. It doesn't get diverted till 1936, because the rail bridge here is getting rebuilt, and the road bridge got rebuilt at the same time. And the rail bridge is actually known as the Waitangi Washout Bridge. And so why is it known as the Waitangi Washout Bridge? Built in 1870, in 1897, these rivers, and this is where I get a little bit uncertain, because the Naruroa is on a different alignment here. they flood massively, and they killed 12 people on Clive. Clive is the little town at the bottom of the screen, where you can see the Clive River. And it washes out the railway as well. And so they rebuild the bridge, and they call it the Waitangi Washout Bridge. That's the one that then gets replaced in the 1936, and that's the one that's been washed out again, which is kind of apt, given its name. But there's a bit more to this. The Tuki Tuki, which is not even on screen. Oh yeah, sorry, it's right down the bottom. That used to outlet at this area too, and that's about the 1860s. That changes its channel, and then I should use the mouse. 1960s, the Wairoa gets changed from going through Clive to this alignment, and because of that, you have to rebuild both the road bridge and the rail bridge. So that's Bridge 216. And for those that know a bit of rail history, Dr. Francis Small, who was boss of rail for ages, he did his PhD on scour hazards and such on Bridge 216 because rail was a bit concerned. Would it have a scour risk? And his PhD proved it didn't. And actually the cyclones proved it was somewhat resilient, but not so for Bridge 217. So that's what it looks like after the storm. So I mentioned all of that damage up Awatoto. Yeah, there was no water there before, and this is probably the Waitangi stream, I think, and it's become a bit more in the Tutaikuri. Oh, so that 1960s, most of the water from the Tutaikuri got diverted to go under Bridge 216, and this is just a bit of an outlet. That some people, there were proposals to change the road bridge into a culvert back in about 2004. Railways objected to it. I don't know if any of the people that objected are in the room, but I thought that was quite a smart thing to do because it's shown it does need to be a substantial waterway. Yeah, so look, that's what it looked like straight after. You can see the debris and such, the missing bridge. And that's what it looks like on Monday, I think that photo's taken. So yeah, it's been a great bit of work, and we're hoping to open that in September. There's still a bunch of work to do. The rail's not on the bridge yet, but a lot of other stuff is. And there's another view. This one's not so much about bridging, but gonna talk about Eastdale a bit, and it's about rivers. So it's Peat Marsh, the ganger for Napier and Wairoa, standing on what used to be the railway track, and I think it's kind of on its original alignment there, but it's certainly not in the upper picture. You can see the railway track here, and you can see another bit of railway track over here, and you can see a car that's almost impaled with rail sort of all over the place. So again, before and after, the green is before, and Eastdale's awesome. Well, Eastdale used to be awesome, sorry. Lots of vineyards, breweries, there was a girls' building school, Hukariri, lots of cool stuff at Eastdale. And bank to bank, pretty much of the hills that are on either side of Eastdale is where the water and the silt reach. And again, you've got that brown sway through there. So Eastdale is hugely affected, and the rail as well. So that red line, that's the rail alignment, and some points of interest, and hopefully you can see the mouse. Yeah, that's a piece of rail track that wrapped around that top building and actually partly destroyed the building. That car that you saw in the other photo, that's that white dot down the bottom that's got the rail wrapped around it again. So it's moved a couple of 100 meters, and rail's not light. The rail has a bit of strength to it, but the river has just ripped it, and all of that was orchard with hundreds of posts, and they've all been completely destroyed and taken out. Right, just on I mentioned the embankment washout, so here's a couple more. They're not quite as big, but they're still pretty substantial. So that's at Waipanga, which is in the East River Valley, and Waikoa, which is a bit further north. So they're actually different ones. And we've got about 5 of this scale, 6, I forget. So yeah, they're the big issue for us in that area, and it's getting to them. Right, I'll go through this quite quick because I have talked about some of this stuff before, but mentioned the standard way of assessing, and we massively geared ourselves up to use mobile tools, phones and handheld apps, and that hugely sped up the process of doing all of the damage assessments, of figuring out the 401 damage sites that we've had to deal with and categorising them. And then a lot of use of other digital tools. So we've GIS'd all that, and yet you have people that have done reports in the field that's all been uploaded. And we started off a little bit slow with this stuff. It was slower than the Kaikoura response, but then it massively transitioned through giving people an idea of, this could be done a bit better, or could you use this tool, massively transitioned to be probably half the time and 3 times the amount of information that we got in Kaikoura. And a lot of use of drones. So drones, just what information you can get with drones and the ease of doing it is increasing all the time. So WSP did that's Holt Forest Road, up just a bit south of Tūtera, but KiwiRail's own team did this other one. So that's State Highway 5 to intersection. And that's as good as LiDAR information for pulling it, measurements and such off it. So yeah, hugely handy. And I think I'm coming to the end of my, but yeah, we're into bridges, and it's Phil.
I was wondering, that's such a good talk, and there are going to be so many questions whether we should park the bridges for another session, because we're working through those right now. How do people feel about that? And we should ask Daniel questions. That's what I think we should do. So I'm happy to do it, but I reckon that would be more valuable, Daniel. I'm fine either way. I'm not fine. See if we have questions. Questions? Yeah. You know any idea what the cost of it?
Yes. It's getting worked through with those that will make decisions on the costs, but it's going to be more than $10 million, and it'll be less than $1 billion. Look, all of that assessment work was hugely useful, and the team really smashed it out to get tons of information that's allowed us to do assessments and get costing together, which all need to get refined, because what's the first thing you do with an estimate? Try and improve on it. But we do have ideas about how much certain things are going to cost. We certainly know how much it's going to cost to rebuild that bridge at Awatoto, because it's pretty much finished. I should have said that's a temporary bridge, and it's temporary because the topography's changed, the flood levels have changed, and regional council and others are really keen for us not to have already set the river level with our bridge matching what it was previous. So it's a temporary bridge, good for 5 years. So within 5 years, you'll see a permanent bridge pop out. Potentially, yeah, still to be worked on. And that'll be the Trek Alliance that does that one.
When you're redesigning the bridge clearances and culverts and things, what size flood are you going to be using? Is it going to be the same as this? Is it 100-year flood or 150-year flood? Or?
There are people in the room that can answer that, because the professional head of structures is here, and lots of his team. But some of it is not necessarily going to be the return period. It is what is the return period effect, because what is a 1% AEP in Eastdale now versus what it was in the same. I don't know if it'll be maximum. It'll be, it'll be at a level, but that level could be different than what it was pre-Cyclone Gabrielle. And there's definitely some differences. Eastdale, the ground has come up 0.5 metre, 600 mils, because that's how much silt, 2.5 million cubes of silt in Eastdale. So when the river floods over, it's flooding over a higher level now. There's one over. Yeah, no, really good point. And KiwiRail has some unique pieces that we're insured, and so our insurance covers, and our insurance covers to reinstate to the standards of today. So 1936 bridge, you can't get that reinforcing anymore, even if you wanted to. So it's going to be to the 2023 standard, but it is to that standard. So when we rebuild, our insurance covers up to that level, and people will know insurance can be quite complicated. And if there's a desire to betterment, then that's a discussion with our funder government. And that's potentially going to be needed in some places. Unless any of the structures team want to answer any more. Right?
That's just a question about the leading off that, well, it's just about the planning for a barrel design thing. That's the clear thing about alternative flow path or something to go there. I'm thinking about that, how to just working through this.
Yeah,
Come back to what the people.
I was thinking these photos are worth looking at, but also that they help answer some of the questions. So that that 1938 flood through Eastdale that people use as a comparison, we've got records of where that reached on our bridge. And again, hopefully you can see the mouse. I need to get in the right spot. It's about there. That's where the flood level reached in the 1938 flood. And I don't think it got to the top chord, but it got over the bottom enough to get debris on the top chord, like you can see. So possibly 5 meters higher than the 38. And yeah, so levels of event of is it going to be more common, bigger events is one thing. Now, sorry, I got myself distracted as I was answering that. Did you have another question?
What our guys are doing is trying to think through what are some alternative pathways or some other ways to think about other diversion paths or how to deal with this for when we get to 2015.
Yeah, okay. And that did prompt something. Did a lot of reading, got the old Bridge 217 file, read all that, and that has great history of the area. And it referenced various reports, Hawke's Bay Regional Council reports, which are online. And reading one of them, I remember seeing that there's a danger of misconception from the public and others that the stop banks will handle any level of event. And it specifically says, and I'm guessing you're all engineers or got an engineering technical interest. And I thought there's been stuff in the media as to why did these things fail us versus did they stand up to a level of event that they were designed for? And Hawke's Bay Regional Council and others have said in published reports, these things are only going to be suitable for this level. So engineers can build anything, but it's not necessarily the right thing to do. The zoning that Eastdale is now going to be, it's zoned as level 3, I think the term is, so not suitable for residential in parts of Eastdale, will be a big change for that because there are a lot of people live there and used to live there. There was a boarding school there, Hukameriri boarding school, that's moved out. So the need to protect will be different in some places. And a lot of this isn't sorted yet. Around Pakawhai, down at Prongahow, where my mother-in-law's place is, she's in the category that's the undetermined one yet. So that stuff's still to come. But is an engineering fix the right one for it? Yeah, there's been a lot of talk stop banks can make it worse if they overtop. But for those that know Hawke's Bay, what are you going to do at Taradale? Because Taradale's there, and Taradale's a big community, and it's right beside the Tutaikuri River. So it needs some engineering to protect it. Just saying we're going to move Taradale is not necessarily a practical option.
That's great. Daniel.
So let's change over.
My questions?
It's just such a great privilege to come here today. Sorry, we've got to stand behind the screen.
Oh, I see.
I do talk. Oh, I see. We thought, let's get on. I'm not even going to introduce yourself. you because you're going to do it. But Don, tell us a bit.
Oh my goodness. I feel humbled and privileged to be here tonight. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone who supported me in my career, and there's just too many names to mention, too many firms have supported me. There's just so many wonderful people out there. And I'm just a very ordinary New Zealand boy grown up in small town New Zealand, and trying to scratch out a living in the real world sort of thing. So there's nothing special where I've come from particularly. So
Well, that's the first bit. We're not tell us about
well, I was lucky enough to find the woman of my dreams at university, so that's solved a lot of problems. And and she's put up with me. She deserves a medal actually for putting up with me for so long. But we were happily married 20 years ago, which is longer than obviously I've been at university. And I have two relatively young daughters. The first who's studying law, the oldest who's studying law at Auckland University, and the youngest is at Wellington Girls College. So, yeah.
let's move on from what you know.
Yeah, well, first of all I've got to say is Navare was born out of Holmes Consulting. I've got to say I was very, very grateful to Holmes Consulting for taking me on, and it's a great firm, and there's nothing particularly wrong with it while I left. But it's quite interesting. Holmes teaches you how to be a commercial engineer, and was a big sort of lesson for me. And I have always had various sort of cottage industries and others. I'd say silly little things I've tried to do in life, and I thought I could go off in Navare and start some of my other dreams as well. And you just realise as an engineer, you don't have time to do all these other sort of projects that you dream you can do, and they require a lot of time to be successful. And I didn't have the time to do Navare and the other things I was trying to do, but I have sort of got involved in other small commercial ventures.
Oh,
Yeah. There's just hundreds of them. And look, I tried to condense like 30-something years of engineering into 15 minutes for this, and it was just impossible. It was impossible to thank all the people. But one of the most interesting projects that I got presented with a few years ago with Siemens came to me and said, would I help them with the civil infrastructure associated with wind farms, because wind farms are won and lost on civil infrastructure. The ability to crawl a crane to the next site, foundations. It's not won or lost on how many, what a turbine costs or anything like that. So they asked Navare to develop a very innovative foundation for a wind turbine. And I said, look, why are you picking on me? You've got a GDP, a turnover bigger than the GDP of Australia, and you're wanting me to run a project? Like, what are you thinking? Kind of thing. And they basically said that they thought we had a few smart people, and they were paranoid about losing IP, and they figured they could ring fence Navare, and if there's any loss of IP, that I could, they'd know where it was lost. And and that I was responsible, and I only agreed to take on the job. As long as I had the understanding that it wasn't me sitting in the corner. I've got the brain the size of a planet. You're so lucky you met me. As long as I could take on anyone I wanted anywhere in the world, and they agreed to that, as long as I owned the IP and the confidentiality agreement. So I was allowed to engage with anyone globally who I liked, and in terms of foundation expertise and so forth. And it was just a really, really exciting project. They flew me first class, business class to Denmark. They didn't like doing Teams meetings and things, so they were in person. And when you're with people who've got global patents, I'm thinking like, the wind people, and you're presenting to them at 4 a.m. New Zealand time in Denmark and trying to convince them that you're the smart guy, I tell you, very, very challenging. And yeah, we did some quite clever things, and should I say, I led a lot of others to do some quite clever things. And being European, they had very clever ways of de-risking things, improving things. They didn't just go, let's try Don's foundation, put a wind turbine on it and see if it falls over, you know. So there's a lot of steps in between. So, yeah.
Now we're getting into the political questions. Any frustrations with current way of doing?
Probably just to name one would be, we build all these structures and it always comes down to dollars and cents. And it would be lovely if we just put a little more into aesthetics, and sometimes that might only be 10% dearer, but these things are like, you know, they're scars on the landscape for the next 300 years or more. And we worry, you know, if we do something that's ugly or very utilitarian, it's there for lots of people to look at. And I just wish we just had a tiny bit more budget sometimes to do things a little bit more ornately. Well, look, what I've, you know, I started out as a fierce sort of independent, I'm, you know, change the world engineer, and I'm the best kind of person. And I, over the years, all those sharp edges have been knocked off me, and I've just said, look, respect others, help people to succeed, be really good to deal with. And this is really, really hard to run your life by, but it's really worth it, is never issue threats or ultimatums. And no matter how hard you think about that, like you think, geez, I'm going to tell this guy if he doesn't do this, this is going to happen, or, you know, and if you model yourself no threats or ultimatums, it just creates a certain approach to life that it's very hard to stick by that, but and you can be walked over and so forth, but I try to conduct myself like that at all times now. Yeah, so it's very easy to get demoralised in this industry because it is very stressful, and I like the term stress dollars. We earn stress dollars compared to other people. So every dollar you earn has a lot of stress associated with it. But at the end of the day, or the end of your working life, you've lived a useful life. Because so many people struggle when they get older and they go, what have I done? I've ripped off people, or I've paid the grocery bill, or whatever. But what have I done? You know, literally, what have I done? And you can actually look back and go, I've lived a useful life. And the other thing I've sort of said is that with engineers, you'd be surprised how clever you are when you apply yourself to some other things, just slightly outside your own discipline. So for me personally, I had an interest in electronics. I've worked closely with like Bruce Carruthers of McLaren Audio for the last 20 years. He's now at Geological Nuclear Science. I've got all those people running around helping with various projects. I do all sorts of things I shouldn't be doing in electronics, but I'm mentored by really clever people. So I don't fix things, by the way. I don't mind designing things. And also say, like, you know, like, you don't realise the skills you've got. Like, you can deal with contractors, you can deal with design. You know, like most people can't. So like, go and build a house, build a development, build a car, build an aeroplane, you know, help a charity. You've got so many skills that most people haven't, and they get overwhelmed with. So, you know, put yourself out there, but just go, look, I'm going to, and one of the crazy things in New Zealand is if you build a house as a development or add on to your house, it's tax-free. So you don't need to be a developer. You build something, move on, sell it, make a profit. It's tax-free. And everyone in the room has that skill. And you go, but most people don't. And you go, oh, I don't like dealing with contractors. I don't like dealing with this, the council, all that sort of stuff. All the consenting stuff, the dealing with contractors. You know, just go out there and do it, because you've got those skills just built in. And like I always envy money market kind of people because they sit there making money for themselves all day. And I go, how can I do that? Because we all have to plan for our retirement. And so I just encourage you, don't, risk your life savings or anything, but just challenge yourself a wee bit and do something with your skills to make a better life for yourself and for others. And I don't like mentioning what I personally have done for charities because it's so small compared to all the philanthropic people I know and things, but you can do a lot for charities without actually losing much time. So I sort of encourage that as well. Well, look, I was just going to say one other thing, just as a sort of I've had years of experience to hear these things, but one of the expressions that I love is that in our game, whether we want to admit this or not, if someone knows a tiny bit more than us, they're an absolute genius. Oh my God, that guy's a guru, he's a genius. And if they know a tiny bit less than us, they're a complete fool. So in our game, there's only fools and geniuses. And I don't know where I fit on that spectrum. And look, one of my great mentors was a civil engineer, and the best bit of advice he said to me was always be prepared to learn from someone with virtually zero experience. So you get a young graduate turns up and says, don't have that arrogance. I know everything. I've been doing this for 30 years. Like if someone's had 1 year experience and they can share some, offer some help with something, take it on board. And I'm still learning. I am still learning. I've learned things in the last 12 months. Oh, sorry. Well, that's a good question. So I hope I'm correct in answering this. It's actually, it's Bertram, but I'm very interested in the origin of names, and it was my late father's name. So he was known as Bert, and I believe it's a Shakespearean name, but I'm prepared to stand corrected on that as well. So.
I'm not sure if we showed some sign of appreciation to involved in doing now.
Hey, we haven't finished. Oh, I thought we'd finished.
No. I think everybody's going to see this.
Pressure of time.
9 minutes.
Nice.
How long do you?
I thought I had 20 to do the presentation. Is that not the case? I'm going to flick through really quickly then. Yeah.
You get double plates.
Oh, can go back. Okay, 1 second. Yeah, it's these small problems. Okay, just this. Sorry, everybody. I thought I had to do a presentation. Right, so just very quickly, I was educated at the University of Canterbury. I was in the era of the park, Paulet and Presley, and a feature of that was a very social sort of thing. So I used to go to drinks at Professor Park's house on a Friday night, which is very entertaining. And
The likes of Rob Park and Ka Ching Chung were running around in those days. So that's how far we go back. I started life at Morrison Cooper and Partners in Wellington, which became Kingston Morrison, Sinclair Knight Mertz. Eventually moved on to Holmes Consulting, and then eventually started Navare Design. My first mentor was a guy called Colonel Commandant George Butcher, who was a lot of people here would know, old school civil engineers who did everything: roads, bridges, buildings, geotechnical reports. I did marine structures, coal stores, water reservoirs, cranes, tall chimneys, you name it. And eventually moved on to geothermal power plants. Sorry, to move back there. My first project, which I was very proud of, was the Concordian Stains project. And as a graduate, I designed the a canopy around the bottom, which I was hugely proud of. Still there today, attached to an old brick masonry facade. Of interest, those two towers are coupled through the podium, and when the crane was attached to the north tower, it slewed and moved the south tower, which upset a lot of people. And it was because they were so well coupled, it acted like a tuning fork. So that's just a sort of a by the way. Also worked on Williston House, and I worked on 90 Victoria Street. I wanted to mention 50 Manners Street. This was an early cruciform construction building. I want to talk very quickly about safety on site. There were no handrails. There was no to get up to a particular floor. There were just scaffold planks across the lift shaft opening, and if you're lucky, an old bit of a wooden ladder was wired to it. And of course, the wind whistled through it, so it wasn't for the faint-hearted. If you look at the gutter around the top of it, you used to walk around the gutter there, don't look down. I don't know if I'd have the nerve to be on that job today. But the reason I've mentioned this job is very recently we got a job at the IMAX cinema, which is run from out of Toronto here in Wellington, and the architect involved remembered me on that project. And they were having problems with seismic design of the cinema screen here in Lower Hutt. And he said, I wonder if that Don guy is still around. And anyway, he raised this at a meeting and I'd completely forgotten, but we didn't wear hard hats in those days. And again, I wanted to reflect on the safety thing. He said, Don, he stood up at the meeting, he said, Don saved my life. And I had completely forgotten about it, but he hit his head and he went to fall over the edge. And just intuitively, I grabbed and he pulled him back and he dropped on the ground and whatever. And so that he'd never forgotten it, and I had forgotten it. But it just shows, like how things have changed, walking up over scaffold planks, no safety barriers, no anything. I famously jumped from this building onto the tower crane. There's a bit of a gap like that. I wouldn't do it today. And I slid on the slippery surface. I tell you, my heart, I can still remember it. Anyway, I just wanted to go through a sprinkling of projects. I was heavily involved in the geothermal industry. So this structure here on the left is a separator structure, which was invented by New Zealanders. They're about $1 million US over 20 years ago. It's got very clever internals, very complicated finite element analysis stuff inside that we used to do. This is huge engineering stuff. This is in Indonesia. We used to do work in the Philippines. These pipes, 42-inch carry, two-phase, which is superheated steam and salt water, which is brine. And you have these pipes coming from the wellheads up to 10 kilometres. Can you imagine what a 10-kilometre pipe full of water weighs? And some of the huge seismic forces, like 10,000 kilonewton supports and things. So there's people in the room I used to work with as well. We used to design these supports, these pressure vessels, just another whole world we worked in. Jacobs are still doing this work. This is the Kinleith cogeneration plant. On the right-hand side, I designed that building. It's about an 8-storey high building, that big chimney up the back. John Wood designed the chimney. I was the peer reviewer, just as a sort of a by the way. I just want to give a sprinkling of things I was involved with. This is the TY Point aluminium smelter. The crane up above is the best photo I could get. That's a 130-tonne crane designed by yours truly. That's to lift the pot. That's one pot out of the TY aluminium smelter. That's to lift the pots out and work on them, clean them up, put them back in. So when I was at Holmes, the last project I actually ran was the Supreme Court project. It was a really, really exciting project. Unfortunately, wasn't there to finish it. So you had an earthquake risk, which ended up being base isolated brick masonry building on the right, and then the new building on the left. And I just wanted to sort of share some sort of more amusing things. We got a phone call at Homes one Wednesday. Oh, we've had a flood, power station in the Philippines flooded. Have you got some guys that can design a flood? Well, we like New Zealand engineers. I put up my hand. Rob Park designed a concrete wall. I designed the steel one. And by Friday, this guy rang up and said, "Oh, can one of you fly over here on Monday? You know, we want to implement it." It led to the this is on the Pacific Hydro, which is a publicly listed Australian company. This on the left, you can see the confluence of two rivers. This power station flooded, massive insurance claim. We built a flood wall around it using the existing building to hold it up. But and that led to also all sorts of adventures. We went over to the Philippines and met all sorts of people. I got a bridge for Homes to design over the Balkan River on that particular trip. And I just want to share some sort of, I thought I'd try and make this interesting, but when we arrived there, the client was hugely wealthy. So all we did was fly around in private jets, sipping wine over Mount Pinatubo and cruise around in this helicopter. And so we'd do things like, what the traffic's like in Asia. We'd land on top of buildings, so then we'd feel like a bear and you go, oh yeah, so let's land in the back of a bar. And everyone in the bar would look out and go, well, the cool people have arrived, and we'd rock out there. And it was all very funny until after a week of being in this helicopter, I looked up and I saw some holes. And I said, what's going on with that? And the guy said, I would often get shot at. And I said, so anyway, and the pilot said, oh, no, sir, no problem. And he said, he pulled out this pump action shotgun. He said, everyone shoots at us. I fly back and I throw open the door and I find they never fire back again. So I'd been in a helicopter for a week. But all joking aside, I've never been so scared in my life around power lines. I was in an electrical storm flying back to Manila one day on this trip, and we ended up in vertical flight. I thought I was going to die. I didn't know how upset I was until I went to put my foot on the ground at Manila Airport. And I went like that, and my foot went like that. It wouldn't stop. And it was because of the adrenaline in my body. I was just so terrified. But anyway, I'm still here today to tell the story. Moving on to Navarre, some significant projects. Obviously, there's the Furakino bridges, which we very successfully delivered with, and Manawatu bridges with Fletcher Construction, nearly a kilometre of bridges. There was the KiwiRail Falls Bridge, which I managed, and it was a launch construction curved over the KiwiRail River. I took over the Lower Hatia project after we merged with Peterson Chung, and everybody on the project became part of Navarre. And another really interesting approach was to show that we don't just do bridges. I've been involved in the modelling of the penstocks on for Meridian on Benmore Dam. That's their biggest asset in New Zealand. Earns over 200 million a year. So again, I said, why are you guys messing with us? You can have anyone you like. But we looked at viscous damping and various systems to protect those, the seismic vulnerability of the penstocks. Quite unusual to have concrete penstocks. Another project, we got involved in the Poseidon P8 hangars, which are for the new military aircraft based at Ohakea. We did all the drawing of the steelwork. Surprise, surprise. There's 3,500 tonne of steel, 22,000 drawings, would you believe? And I like to tell this story is the only reason we got the job is because I did the Australian haka. Do people know what that is? So I was on, what do you call it? Poppy Day, whatever you call it. And I was walking down the street and some senior defence people approached me and said, because they were all out on the street, and they said, Dawn, can you buy a poppy? And I thought, a better. And of course, I didn't have any change, and they don't take EFOS. And I went the Australian haka. And and anyway, the guy was so amused by that. He said, that Don guy seemed like a bit of a laugh. What does he do? And he said, he's an engineer. And I said, we need some drawing done urgently, because basically what happened was the aircraft were ordered, and this was hugely behind schedule. So we helped print it. So we worked with Oricon on that. It's their project, Oricon and AECOM. Our latest project, which I'm very proud of, was the Riverlink Bridge. I'm not even sure I'm allowed to show this, but this is a pedestrian bridge. It's very exciting. Hopefully we can afford it. And Wayne's in the room, aren't you? Yeah. Anyway, it's lots of excitement over that at the moment. And the other thing I mentioned, my most exciting project, you can see the scale of these wind turbines we've been involved in. This is I'm not even sure, I haven't gone into too much detail because I'm bound by confidentiality agreements, but we come with a monopile solution for these turbines, and we put precast segments underground. That's a 5-metre diameter pile. And here's the funniest story of all, if I've got time to tell it. We get a lot of people ringing us, oh, we want you to design a signature bridge, or we want this. We got hello from Paris calling me saying, Monsieur Pierre Galin, and he goes, I want you to design a bridge. And we're like, well, how many? We thought it was a Nigerian banking scheme. And I said, because, you know, it's like, oh, you give us your bank account number and, you know, we'll connect it. Anyway, I was actually really rude. I said, if this guy's real, you'll get your bum on a plane and be over here. Well, 3 days later, he turned up. And I said, we're still not going to be paid. Anyway, to cut a long story short, he said, I want you to design this new bridge in New Caledonia. Anyway, so next thing we had, and it has to be the Euro standards, and all the contracts are in French. So we had all our schoolboy form French books out and Google interpretations of contracts. And I said, I know we're going to get in trouble here. But anyway, we did the job. And you know what the French are like? They love complaining, but it's not because they like complaining. They like because it raises the standard. You know, well, this cheese isn't quite done with this wine. But anyway, I said to this guy, it's so funny on reflection. So we did this job. And first of all, the big surprise was, but Richard Raymond said, there's 40,000 euros gone in our account. I was like, oh, you know, here's the big doubter. Anyway, wait for this. We designed this bridge, and I said, well, let's ask how we did. So I said, look, you know, are you happy? Oh, no, this bridge is no good. You've got weld details, you've got bolts, you've got foundations, you've got oil, and, you know, it's just no good. Everything you put on your drawings are no good. So we had issued for construction drawings. And it turns out in the French translation, so we had $100,000 fee to put it in context. He only wanted a concept design that we put in the morning. Can you imagine the money we would have made? Anyway, so that was and this was all from hello, ringing me up from Paris. And the other really exciting job I just want to finish this with, because I could tell you how great thou art, and I designed this beam, and that's just boring. But anyway, we got asked. We do a lot of zip lines and high ropes courses, and we got asked to do. This is a truly exciting story. We got asked to do a 250-metre zip line over the Kuching, in a place called Kuching. It's like the second largest city in Taiwan. It's called the Love River, believe it or not. 250 metres. You can probably see a tiger bear sign. That's a 5-story high climbing wall, and you know that people are climbing up 2 zip lines and all the safety gear. And then we designed it all from our Auckland office. And for the Tiger Bear Festival, and of course, anyway, cut a long story short, we designed it all, and the client said at the 11th hour, they said, look, if something goes wrong with this, we're going to need some expertise in Taiwan to deal with problems. Would anyone be available? And of course, it came to me, and I said, well, you know, it's obviously a job for senior me, you know, the most experienced to go to the beer festival. And I said it to Matt Spooner, who's in the room today, and I could see the look on his face. He'd done all the design work and hard work, and I could see the look on his face. I said, just kidding, Matt, off you go to the hardship posting in Taiwan. And he spent a week there on full pay, just monitoring things and monitoring these zip lines, but there were 4-hour queues to them. They asked us to come back and do 4 more the following year. It hasn't happened, but very, very exciting project. And I know these are small beer in terms of fees and scale, but some very complex engineering, because this is all temporary. That 5-story structure you see, the zip lines, and all the cables and everything, this is all designed here and implemented in another country and safely happened and was all dismantled and no one was hurt, and it was a great time. So just a snippet of some of the things I've done. So, thank you.
on the presentation, which is on Seatoun Tunnel, seismic strengthening. And then, well, we all know where the tunnel is. It's basically critical heritage asset on Wellington, providing access to the suburb of Seaburn. And the portals were identified as being vulnerable to seismic shaking. So we get presentation from combined presentation from Brava and Brian Gonzalez. Brian, I suppose it's not very often people pronounce your surname without listing it around. So who is the first presenter? Brava. Okay. Who is it?
Thanks very much. There. So there's a little tunnel. I feel a bit underwhelmed compared to all the structures Don was showing us. There's a little tunnel in Wellington leading to the suburb of Seatoun. So we did some seismic strengthening, and I'm going to talk about today with my co-author Brian, who built or did the strengthening work, and also acknowledge people who have worked on the project with me, in particular Guna Mukaya, who was involved in the design and construction. So if we can get this to work. Okay, it's working now. So in Wellington, there are a number of road tunnels which have been strengthened over the last 10-15 years. And this was one of the last of the tunnels for Wellington City Council, which was strengthened. And there are a number of papers here which deal with that work. But today I'm going to talk about this particular tunnel, which is the Seatoun Tunnel. It is a 147-meter long tunnel, so a tiny little tunnel. And it's got unreinforced concrete portals and wing walls, and unreinforced concrete tunnel walls with brick arch above. So this tunnel was built way back in 1906, 1907, using manual labor, and you can see the diagrams there. The photographs from the time of construction, and probably even less safety than the ones Don talked about. And you can also see the very variable ground conditions in those photographs, which we had to deal with in the strengthening work. So originally it catered for a tram line. So the tunnel was formed, the tram line was put in, which enabled the suburb of Seatoun to develop because you had access through those hills. Now it's a road tunnel which carries about 6,500 vehicles a day. So, and you can see some historic photographs when the tunnel was opened in December 1907. So it's a heritage structure, which is a Class 2 heritage structure. So we had to take that on board in doing the strengthening. So the original seismic assessment was done by Geoscience and Novari, and the tunnel barrel was assessed not to require strengthening, but the portals required strengthening. So we got engaged, Opus WSP engaged to do the design and construction management. So the key drivers we had to deal with are the heritage aspects, because being a heritage structure, we needed to preserve the heritage fabric of the tunnel portals, and also resilience, because eventually what council wanted is a resilience link to Seatoun in the event of major earthquakes. So to achieve that, we put in some hidden structures. We put in a reinforced concrete beam, as you can see, behind the portal wall, and some overlays across the buttresses, which were on either side of the tunnel opening. And we had a number of anchors which were hidden into the structure so that you can't see them, which are the most important elements of strengthening. So Some key things to do with the work is the anchor heads were conceived in the portal phase, as I said, and we also carried out extensive concrete repairs and painting of the strengthened structure. And there was also an ancillary retaining wall on the Strathmore side, which was also strengthened with a concrete beam and anchors. So you can see here, you can see the concrete beam behind the portal and the overlay on the buttress, and you can see the anchors anchoring back into rock. Some of the key things were to do with the anchor features. The anchors are ductile and they are able to yield if you had larger design earthquakes. And when I saw the National Seismic Hazard Model come out last year, I thought, oh good that we had ductile anchors. So because now the seismic loads have gone up 50% at least, haven't they? And these anchors were double corrosion protected, so they were encased in sheets, so they can provide another 100-odd years life. And a key thing was the anchors were post-grouted, because you saw the rock was very weak and shattered, and we needed to, one, make sure that we can get good capacity in that rock. So they were post-grouted with tube and shed system. And also the post-grouting helped to make sure that there is good bond capacity between the rock and the grouts, so that if there is an earthquake overload, then the bar stretches rather than the anchor fails in a brittle manner. So that was quite important as well. To get this funded and over the line, we needed to do a business case. So one of the key things we were asked to do is to develop a single stage business case to get funding from the council and the subsidy from the transport agency. So we did an economic analysis, taking into account the need to recover quickly after an event. And so we did an economic analysis looking at the probability of events and how much the damage and disruption costs were if there was no mitigation, and how much that could be reduced if there was mitigation measures. And from that, we were able to demonstrate that the strengthening work would have a benefit cost ratio of more than 8. So if you spend $1, you will get more than $8 in benefits. So that involved considering alternative routes and disruption costs should the tunnel be closed. So having done that and got the funding, we tendered and got a contractor engaged, and Construction Techniques won the tender. So I'd like to welcome Boyan to talk about the rest.
Thank you, Graba. I have to say that we actually tendered for this job twice. First time was December 2018, and we came really close, but not close enough to get over the line. Just the price tag was a bit too much for what was in the budget. But in post-tender discussions with WSP and City Council, one of the schedule items stood out as a fairly pricey item, and that was traffic control. We had some previous experience having done similar strengthening work to Hatai bus tunnel, but the difference between the two tunnels is the sheer volume of traffic, and it's not only buses, it's vehicles, pedestrians, cycle traffic, plus neighboring properties nearby, plus 2 schools, so morning and afternoon school runs. So it's a busy place. So one of the critical factor to successfully applying or implementing this strengthening work was traffic control. So Wellington City Council decided that they would install permanent lights to assist with traffic control, and that didn't make a difference. So 6 months later, we tendered for this job again, and we won it. The job was awarded. How do I do this? Yeah. So the job was awarded in June 2019, and we started on site in August 2019. contract period was 200 days, I think, and we were fairly comfortable with it, but a couple of items were on a critical path where we couldn't afford any slippage, and one of them was anchoring. That brings us to trial anchors. A total of 4 anchors were installed to either side of the tunnel. That was to verify design assumption for anchor capacity. Trial anchors comprised 50 mm bar, which was 2,020 kilonewtons ultimate capacity, and there was about 2.5 times the capacity of production anchors. The reason for that was A, so we can fail those anchors, and B, so the failure mechanism is in the balance zone. Trial anchors were installed in accordance with British standards for ground anchoring, and basically using the same drilling method, using the same drilling methodology, and same anchor hole, just to replicate the production anchors. All anchors were tested to failure, and load was applied in multiple cycles. I was going to say, I'll move on to the next slide. So, yeah, all 4 anchors were failed with failing load in the order of 1,000 kilonewtons, which correspond to a bond capacity of about in excess of 1 MPa. It was pretty much consistent with the results that we got on similar jobs and similar ground conditions on other projects. The anchors were post-grouted, as Barbara mentioned before, and most of them took about 3 cycles to reach that saturation just around immediate surrounding of the grout column. Moving on to production anchors, a total of 24 production anchors were installed to tunnel portals and the retaining wall on the Stratmore side. Typical sequence included pre-grouting the bar and corrugated duct in factory conditions at our yard, delivering bar in 6 meter lengths to site, installing the bar and post-grouting, up to 2 to 3 cycles of post-grouting, and finally testing bars. All anchors, all production anchors were subject to on-site testing, where there was on-site suitability test or on-site acceptance tests. Anchor bond length was varied from 7 to about 13 meters odd, and that was the result of the location of the underlying rock. It took 2 to 3 cycles of post-grouting for most anchors, and the testing results were pretty much in line to what we expected, and pretty much in line with what we got from the trial anchors. It was the creep was monitored at peak of each cycle, and that was in the order of 0.2 of the mil. Following anchor testing and installation, early in the piece we made a decision that we're going to test all the anchors once all the concrete work was finished. That was purely a practicality of it, because once the new structure is finished, then we can stress the anchors against the new structure. So there was a bit of a risk there in case, in the event that we had anchor failure, which would cause some headaches. But based on our previous experience in similar ground conditions and based on the results that we got from the trial anchors, we were comfortable actually that the anchors would perform, and they did. So once the anchors were installed and locked off. The anchor head recess will fill up with grout. Reinforced concrete buttresses and ground beam, that was pretty standard construction. The only hassle or the only challenge there was the slope behind the ground beam was fairly steep, so it required temporary works during excavation to ensure that the ground remains stable and to provide safe work environment for the guys. Once that was finished, then we thought we were on a home run, or so we thought. The only other activities required after that was plastering and painting, and we were looking at finishing the job quite a few weeks ahead of schedule. But then it was early March, and then COVID happened, and we went into the level 4 lockdown. So all the work was delayed. Just want to say, go back to traffic management. Yeah, that was the key factor to successful completing this job, and that worked pretty well, actually. I mean, in those slides, you don't see too many people, but it does get really busy there. So the final result is in those images below. It's restored and strengthened structure to current standards. Work was finished a few weeks ahead of schedule, even with that lockdown. One of the main achievements for us was really we didn't receive a single public complaint during the works or after work, so that was pretty good. I know it's a cliche, and we only say this when something goes all right, but it was a team effort, and by all parties involved, including WSP and Wellington City Council and the contractor. And I just want to acknowledge our subcontractors on the job, which is Barrow Construction, Webster Drilling, Plastic Coat, and H2O. So that's us.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Brother. Any questions for either of the two presenters?
The only question for Brother is violence and immobility. The question is, did you look at any other options to strengthen the building other than the two beams that you've got?
Any other questions? One from Boyan. Okay, thank you again for the presentation, Jessa. And that concludes our presentation tonight. Just to inform you that we're planning next meeting for the 16th of November. And also, in case you don't know, the assessor groups in Christchurch and Auckland became active. They had two presentations beginning of this month. I think it was 3rd and 10th of August. So it's a bit of too many events in 1 month, but we're trying to spread them around. So I think Auckland Christchurch groups are planning something earlier in October to be confirmed. So if you are a assessor member or you can contact or around or email or PNGL or even email after WSP. And if you get information this meeting, all the topics are going to be hopefully this time. Thank you again to all the participants. Thank you all for attending in big numbers. And help us be in the community.